I don't want to tell you what I know for fear that you will go off and do it on your own. And I think that's a insecurity within a creative industry more so than the actual reality. I can tell you everything I know ever in the history of the world, and you still can't do what I do because you're not me.
Hi, I'm Beth Beesky, the founder of More Time to Design and your host of the Design Dialogues podcast. I've been a designer for the last 12 years and I've run my own studio for 5. And I know how hard it is to run a successful business. You not only need to be great at designing, but you need to be great at all the other things as well. I created More Time to Design, a software platform to help designers run efficient studios, and I've created the Design Dialogue podcast to help us all learn together. Each week, we will meet professionals who are at the top of their game doing things that help us run our studios. We'll have conversations with social media managers, interior design mentors, copywriters, stylists, photographers, suppliers, and also designers who have been in the game for a long time and who have such a wealth of knowledge to share. I hope that each week you feel inspired and informed at the end of each of our design dialogues. So join me for the Design Dialogue podcast. Welcome to episode 6 of the Design Dialogues podcast. This week we are talking with Rhiannon Lee from Oleander and Finch. Before we get to the dialogue, I wanted to remind you about the 30-day free trial that we offer with More Time to Design. For those of you who don't know, More Time to Design is an interior design studio and project management software that will change the way you run your studio. If you want to know how to build a better business, please reach out to find out. Follow the links in our show notes to see how you can change your business today for the better. I also have a favour to ask. If you're enjoying the podcast, I would love for you to leave a review. Reviews are one of the best ways for people to find the podcast. I would love to get to 20 reviews by the end of August. Do you think you can help me get there? If you are unsure of how to leave a review, I will put in the show notes some simple instructions to follow. I really do appreciate you taking the time to leave a review. In today's episode, I talked to Rhiannon about her business from being on the tools as a designer and how she found herself as a mentor to new designers. I really enjoyed this dialogue with Rhiannon, and I hope you do as well. Hi, Rhiannon. Welcome to the Design Dialogues. How are you today?
I'm great. How are you?
Good. So lovely to have you. So for those who don't know, we're speaking to Rhiannon Lee from Oleander and Finch today. And Rhiannon, I like to ask everyone when we start, what can you see out your window today?
I have a couple of windows in my design studio, and I'm really blessed to see lots of established gum trees. When we put the design studio in the backyard, we oriented, so I have a floor to ceiling window here looking out to a little native garden and all the sort of treetops in front of me. So it's a beautiful nature outlook that I love, love, love being out here.
That's awesome. That sounds like a very inspiring space to work in.
Yeah, absolutely.
So tell me a little bit about your business journey, and where you are now in terms of your business.
What a loaded question. There's so much in that, isn't there? My business has had many iterations, as most small businesses do. I think, they sort of start in one way, or you've got intentions to take it. Your 5-year plan looks like X, and suddenly you're 5 years in and it looks nothing like you originally set out to achieve.
Yeah.
Kind of throughout the entire thing, I have always focused on virtual design or e-design as a sort of fundamental part of the business. And I was really grateful that I did that, because when COVID happened, I wasn't one of the #pivot crew. I had those systems and procedures set up for virtual design just because I had kids, little tiny kids at the time, and it was never convenient for me to do the in-home consults and on-site visits. So I'd always set up the structure of my business to want to do that virtually.
Yeah.
And the greatest benefit to the whole thing was really, originally when I used to say we'll Zoom or, we'll use this, people would be so confused. Like, are you going to hologram into the house? What's going to happen? And I found that post-COVID, it is now so easy to say virtual consultation, Zoom. It's actually been such a great benefit to the language and understanding of clients.
Yeah.
Which I think we've all sort of experienced. You've now got this, if you are doing in person and virtual, people understand it a lot more, which is great.
Yeah, it's just such an accepted part of society now, isn't it?
Yeah, and not unusual. So you
Yeah.
can just basically select to have, it's a bit like a telehealth versus in-person appointment. People understand now, oh, it's not going to be scary. You could absolutely achieve it. Whereas before, I think people questioned whether you could actually achieve a great style outcome for them. And if you understood spatially a room by watching it through a screen. And now they sort of think, oh, well, I can tell you're in an office, so you could probably tell I have a living room and what that looks like. So that was great. And the business has obviously changed quite a bit. It's sort of moved around, a bit of snakes and ladders, and we've found ourselves now sort of supporting emerging designers, plug the hole in the information about small business that design school leaves out. So you find that design school has to teach you how to be a designer, and they will totally go over bits and pieces around what you'll need to do in order to launch a design business.
Yeah.
But obviously it's not business school, it's design school, and you can't learn everything in that one course. So I find there's a lot omitted that really is instrumental to needing, you go out on your own, you're really excited, you've got all this design skill, but then you're sort of really left wanting in the systems and the marketing and the business infrastructure that you actually need, and client acquisition, how to get them, how to love them, how to get them to come back, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
It's a learned skill. It's not a taught skill. So it's something, as in you don't just get it as a workbook to the side of your design course. You have to actually go in and really understand that marketing and that sort of sales side of things. So that's where it's sort of gone.
And
now,
what was the point where you went, I want to do more than just the design client side work? I want to do this kind of, I suppose, teacher, mentor side of it. What made you want to go down that path?
It happened very organically with a lot of DMs and questions. I work with a really strong sort of 60-40 mix of Australian and American clients. And a lot of e-designers in Australia were sliding into my DMs to be like, how do you get clients in New York and Hawaii and Kentucky? And how do I do that? And so those questions were coming up, and then questions around, is one of the things that I think I did differently from the beginning. And it's because I've always had a strong desire to abolish that culture of secrecy within the design community. To share the work. So I have always put up absolutely everything. The only thing that I'll put a GIF or GIF in front of is sensitive information, either commercially sensitive or people's home addresses or floor plans, things that I know my clients would not naturally share. I'm not going to show, if they've sent me a snap of the before of their bathroom with towels on the floor, I'm not putting that on my stories because they're not going to feel comfortable about that. But absolutely everything else I have always shared. So I've seen lots of designers say, oh, sorry, I can't, tell you my sources because I work with these trade suppliers and stuff. Whereas I'm like, this sofa's from Globe West, it's called this, and I have a trade. I'm always going to be sharing, and with other designers, yes, this is the paint color. Show me or tag me if you use it for a client. I'd love to see. I just always felt like that. And I felt the volume of those questions coming in started to tip the scales from client inquiry to just B2B, or business to business, other designers. And it started getting pretty full on, and it felt like it tapped me on the shoulder before I probably actively sought after it. And I have a bit of a background in training as well. I worked for 15 years at STA Travel. So I have a travel background. But one I had there was a national sales trainer for the travel agents. So I fly around teaching them how to sell travel insurance, which is not so sexy, but it's got to get done. And so I felt like, because I'd been through so many courses with that company in order to learn to write training, learning scaffolding, understand learning outcomes, understand delivering them, I thought, well, this is a really good fit. And at one point I just sort of really intrinsically started thinking about what was missing when I started. Basically wrote a list of all the things I wish I had, and just, what were my biggest challenges in the first 2 or 3 years? Where did I feel lost or lonely, or I couldn't Google or couldn't find? And, you don't have to go into the whole process of writing a course because it's massive, but certainly, pinpointing all of those areas. And then, and then I just said to my husband, that's it. I'm going to take 3 months off the business, as in taking on clients. So it was never going to happen alongside. It was just never going to happen for me, not with 3 kids and and the business was thriving. There was no gap. I wasn't trying to plug a hole. It was like, okay, I have to make a conscious decision. And the last time I made a big decision to take a break in my business was maternity leave. And it was a pivotal moment in my business because I came back with so many systems, procedures, all the things I never slowed down to do when my business took off at the beginning, got done. And I knew taking 3 months off and changing the look of Oleander and Finch for the future, was the right choice to make. I was like, okay, it's sucks for a couple of months, but we'll get it done. Yeah.
That's awesome. And so I want to come back on one thing you said then in a second, but so how much do you still do design work? Are you purely on kind of the mentoring side of things? Like what kind of split do you have?
Yeah, I'm definitely still doing it. I refuse to give it up. Can't choose, won't choose. It's just something that lights me up so much. Like, yes, I'm passionate about working with the designers, but then I find it so helpful to my students if I understand properly the challenges. Like, I haven't dropped that side. So when we talk about clients, I'm like, yes, I'm seeing red flags. I'm having discovery calls when I'm teaching you about discovery calls.
Yeah.
I can record one and show you. It just makes things actually easier for me. Yeah. And I get to do what I love without, I love both, but I don't have to choose. Yeah. It's great. So still doing both of them. And I've been so blessed that actually, we were sort of 6 months into the course and everything has continued, even though my marketing efforts are not at all, like people still drop into my DMs and say, are you designing? Like, so I'm like, clearly I'm not telling you enough. Like, but even though that's changed, the referral and repeat side of my business is booming. Like, it's keeping me booked out. And that is the greatest compliment I think you can have as a business owner. It's really lovely. So very humbling, very lovely. I felt I haven't had to reach out and tell people too often because I'm working on a reduced capacity with clients. I can't obviously have it as many clients as I had before and this whole other focus. So still there doing both, but a bit different.
That's awesome. I have so many things that I want to loop back into, but I'll start with something that you mentioned, which I've had so many discussions with other designers about this, and also kind of I see it with like designers who I used to work with when I was at the big studios, and now they've gone off to do their own thing kind of thing. There is this level of secrecy or I don't know, just protectiveness of information in the industry. I do think it's improving, but we've got so far to go. And I'd love to know why what are your thoughts on why it is like that?
I have so many thoughts as well. A lot of words just flooded me then when you were speaking about that. And there were things like elitism and luxury and thinking about interior design as a business or as a skill that isn't necessarily available to every homeowner. And therefore, does that mean that we have the keys to the, the secret?
Yeah.
I certainly think I agree with you that it is getting much better. There are a lot more. I'm not the only person to share my work, and there are a lot more people willing to share with the designers that are coming up through the ranks as well, which I feel just did not exist.
Yeah, definitely.
I think that's changing, and it's changing for the better. And I'm so proud to be a part of that change. I really do think that people are more open to, hey, this is how I did it. It's not the right way or the wrong way. It's just the way that I did it. And here's my learnings, and I'm going to give that to
Learn
you.
from my mistakes.
And with a lot of like open community chats and Facebook groups and industry-led networking and industry things, within those, there are conversations starting to be had that were never, ever had before.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I think it is just born of like a generational thing. The interior designers before you have come through and not told you anything. And even we see that as the world becomes more and more, dare I say it, woke, but like the generations before were taught their way and they weren't as open to change, and they weren't as open to any of that sort of stuff. So I feel we're seeing the same thing within the industry. It's now starting to crack open, and it's, I think there's definitely always been I don't want to tell you what I know for fear that you will go off and do it on your own. And I think that's a insecurity within a creative industry more so than the actual reality. I can tell you everything I know ever in the history of the world, and you still can't do what I do because you're not me.
Yeah, exactly.
So it actually, to me, is irrelevant. I will tell you, I am such, ask anyone who's ever dropped into my DMs. It's sometimes like too much information. They're like, okay, you can stop now. Like, I didn't actually ask you, born in, they don't want to go all the way back. But I feel it's changing, which is a good thing. And I feel like, future focused is the most important thing, rather than thinking about where we've come from and how we have been in the past. Because and I don't know, I think, I've said this publicly before, but I think there's an element of it being a female dominated business as well that comes into it, which is super sad to say. There's a lot of hashtag women supporting women, and then hashtag women won't tell women. And I feel like that really needs to change. And we're moving in the right direction, just as a society as well as an industry. But, it really does need work.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I think the thing, I mean, and I can only speak to my experience and, my business journey, but I found it really interesting that, so, I started my studio when my son was 6 months old because I just couldn't go back. Like, there was no way I could go back to the job that I was working at, which was with an amazing designer, working on amazing projects, but it just did not work with family life. And I know that that is a really common experience. And I think that I know so many designers who have started their own studio because they have felt they've kind of got no other option, in that they don't want to, have these crazy work hours, and part-time doesn't seem to, I think some studios, like bigger studios, struggle with part-time, which I don't understand why. But, so many designers are starting their business at a time when they're stressed with young children, and they need flexibility and they need support. And like, as you talk about, you learn so much at design school that is about designing, but unless you've been in a role in a larger studio that might have a bit more of the business facing side of it, you're most probably still not that aware of the processes that you need to run a successful business. Like, being a great designer is such a small part of it. Like, it really,
minute.
It really is. Like, you need to be, there's so much more to it. And I think because so many designers who are working in solo studios or, maybe small studios have come to it at a time when they're time poor and they've got other commitments. I think it's the least we can do to kind of, like, we're all stronger if we work together, and it's a better industry if we, there's free flowing of information. And I think the reality is that there is enough work for everyone. There's more than enough work for everyone. But if you are not confident in your work, then you're going to be a bit more secretive, kind of thing. That's my gut feeling. Like, I just think that, So I think as a designer, you have to be confident because you are putting creative stuff out into the world. And sometimes I think if they're struggling with that, then they cope by being secret about all the other stuff. But
yeah, for sure. I think it's very reflective of insecurities. Like, I do think that people, worry that if you see the puppet master behind the puppet, you'll find out that they're a fraud or it's not right. And that's all that imposter syndrome at play. So that's really where I feel the core root of it does come from, where there's a lot of like, well, I don't want you to see my systems and processes because they're a hot flaming mess. And I get that. I get it. Like, why would you want other, and if your main concern is all the other designers, my biggest takeaway from that is stop making content for designers. Make it for your ideal client.
Exactly.
Like, it's okay for me to do that because my ideal client is designers. I want to help designers.
Yeah.
But it's not okay for every person to show, you shouldn't be showing the work that's about them seeing behind the scenes.
Yeah.
You should be showing the work that shows the transformation you're going to give the client.
Yeah.
So, get out of your head a little bit and step back and we can reassess, and I think that will take care of that little insecurity and that issue. But that's work that has to be done.
Yeah, totally.
Easy. That's not, that'll get rid of it. Like it's actually a much bigger piece. Obviously, it's tough.
And so that kind of actually really links into something that I was going to ask you about how you have really two very different audiences that you are talking to. And I know that, like, on your socials, you only have one social channel. You don't have a different one for your clients and one for your students. How do you manage that? Like, how do you have two very different messages coming out of one source?
Probably not very well, if I'm honest. I had to make a decision when I decided to write the course. What am I going to do here? Because I have a really strong established audience on Instagram. Do I continue to feed that audience mood boards, design inspiration, and stay in that, B to C or to customer? Or do I change it all and start talking to B2B or other designers? And that decision was probably the hardest one. So deciding to sort of move into supporting emerging designers was easy. It was very natural. It felt like the right thing to do. I'm super passionate about it. Deciding to write the course was very easy. Deciding what to do with my Instagram was the fork in the road that stopped me in my tracks for far too long. Like, I was like, I don't know what to do. And in the end, it simply came down to the volume and amount of work that it would take to run two was outrageous. I still have 3 boys under 8. I cannot. I have a 1-year-old. I cannot. I struggle, like all business owners, to be a social media marketing manager for my business.
Yeah.
I couldn't do it for 2. I just couldn't. And I've been so grateful with how patient and well received that change in, towards educational content for designers has been received by people who are like, we're just here for the mood boards, like, give us more of that. And I've tried to please everybody, but also I'm not here to please everybody. I'm here to run a business that is my business, my rules, my way. And if you like it, follow. And if you don't, we know where I am super open to the fact that I'm not forcing anybody to come and be part of that change. That message will land and hit with the right people. And for the people that it annoys, like, I can't worry about them, or I'd be up 24 hours a day worrying about other people and what they think. So and I've been really, again, with that whole showing my work or whatever in my stories and things, I take people on that journey. This is about to happen. Here's the frame of the course I'm about to write. Things are changing. I had reels explaining Oleander and Finch is changing. This is happening. This is the new direction for 2023. I hope you'll come along for the journey. And I've been so lucky. I get messages from people from my weekly emails that reply to me and say, hey, I'm a HR director and I just love this email and this business focus. It's got nothing to do with anything. I was here originally to watch like mood boards come up and see like a modern organic aesthetic and different things. But I'm sticking around because this is relevant to the business I'm running, the small business I'm running, selling bibs to markets or whatever. People are engaging with that content in a way that I hadn't expected.
That's awesome.
So for now, I'm just rolling with it. I don't know if it's working. Of course I'm checking, metrics and things, but, you asked, how is it going? We're 6 months in. Ask me again at 12. I'll be doing those check-ins from time to time. But for now, it's all I can do because there are not enough hours to run to.
At some point, you do have to kind of just go, I have X amount of hours. What can I achieve in those hours? And is it ideal? Definitely not. Is it good enough? Yes. Kind of
excellence over perfection. I can't get it right. I can't get it to the level every time, but I just know I couldn't run to.
And another thing that I wanted to come back to talk to you about, and this is, I suppose, more of a designer to a designer question about, so you mentioned that you have a split between US and Australian clients. Do you find a real difference in their style and what they want? Or are there big crossovers? Like, how do you navigate that? Because as someone who, I've done a little bit of work in the US, but not a lot. I mean, it's quite specific work. I feel there's a bit of a disconnect kind of thing. Like sometimes I think it translates and sometimes I'm like, oh, it just looks so American. How do you navigate that and what have you found?
I've found that there's absolutely a huge change. So whenever I am dialing into a virtual consultation in the US, all of a sudden I'm saying sofas and countertops and, I'm using terminology that's completely different to
Crown moldings.
my first language for a start, it can be a bit tough. So that's been picked up over time. The aesthetic is very American. It's very different. And I love that.
Yeah.
How much HGTV can one person consume? Because it really helps. Like it does help. You kind of go in and you understand what you're getting in terms of the look and feel, often the types of timbers used in the home, the types of countertops, all that sort of stuff are very different to here in Australia. One of the things that I have noticed most especially is, say I am, I have a back-to-back client day of appointments. I will dial into the Australian clients and they will want everything that's available in the US Target, US, everything, McGee, absolutely everything has to be a bit modeled on American designers and American trends. And then I'll dial into my US clients and they've specifically chosen me because they want everything coast on Pinterest in Australia. So they're looking for the Mediterranean coastal influence that we see in a lot of homes up the East Coast here. They want that in America. And I have always joked around with every single and my husband and talked about the gap in the market that I see is that we need to move to Hawaii and we need to ship everything in from the States and import to Australia, and then everything from the East Coast of Australia goes by Hawaiian warehouse and goes off to the States, and we're going to be millionaires.
I love the sound of an
not now,
Hawaiian
I've shared it publicly.
I love the sound of an Hawaiian warehouse. Like it's perfect.
Also, having dealt with a few clients in Hawaii, there is a extreme lack of homewares and furniture stores there. Like there's a specific type of thing that you can fill your Airbnb with, starfish and that sort of stuff. But if you're not after that particular look, then it can be really tricky. So there's totally a market there. If someone beats me to it,
I'm
seeing a postcard.
I'm seeing a big gap in the market there. Hawaii, here we come. So I suppose you're in a really unique position that you are talking to new designers and people who are just starting out. They might have been in the business for a while, but starting their businesses. I'd love to know, what are some of the kind of things that you see time and again that people are struggling with?
Struggling with is, again, such a big, there's so many different things that come to mind straight away. If I was going to think of sort of common mistakes, and I hate the word mistakes because we grow through failure, like it's all, I mean, that sounds a bit trite, but it is true. Like I don't really see them as mistakes so much as something you can't avoid in the beginning part of your business, because if you want to learn anything and if you want to be better at anything, you have to see it burn. Like you have to be part of the part where it was like a tanker on fire that you actually went, I'm never going to do this again, or I never want to feel like this again. And somebody just telling you how they felt when the tanker was on fire is not going to produce a result for you. Like you have to sit in it.
So one of the things, like I think that you have to realize is that you sometimes might need to see that tanker burning a couple of times. Like there's a couple of things that I have done way too many times and I'm like, why am I back here again? Like, why do I agree to this? I know it doesn't work. Anyway, so
I keep touching the hot plate and then thinking, what am I doing?
Totally. So what are some of those things?
I think getting distracted, so taking your eyes off the prize, and those distractions are, you said, what are the common things that you see? I see the same distractions over and over again: competition, comparison, perfectionism, imposter syndrome. Like sitting in all of these things is just taking you away from obtaining your goals. So I see a difference between those that have some clarity and clear focus and have set goals and are staying in their lane and are like laser focused and going after them, attacking them, versus people who are sort of like dodging, you know, moving all over the shop and getting really distracted. So I'm definitely seeing a lot of that shiny object syndrome as well, you know, launching something, it didn't, going to something else, starting a different offer because you're not selling the offer you've got, but you've given it 2 weeks. So
yes,
that consistency piece, and I know that I don't hate it, I think it's absolutely true, but I know that some of the students in my course hate me saying it takes time, repetitive behaviors will pay off, consistency does pay off, but that brings
I think as well, like not just consistency, but you, like if you think how long it's going to take to work, then double it, triple it, because it's going to take so much longer than you think. And
because in double the time you're going to start getting to practice, but then you're still going to have that flaming tanker, you know, like it's actually 3 times that before you're confidently reiterating your processes and systems and able to take a discovery call and able to quote your own pricing without looking at a flyer. Like all this stuff just takes time. And you know, setting your social media calendar and knowing that whether 3 times a week is your consistent number or whether every day, like all those sorts of things, you don't have enough time in the day to do everything, and it's knowing where to point your attention to move the needle versus all that busy work. So getting distracted, again, busy work, it's another form of distraction. It's knowing exactly how to be laser focused that will get you that cut through, and what I'm seeing is all this distraction.
And how do you help someone become laser focused? Because I think, you know, the modern world that we live in, there's so many distractions every day, you know, like it is so much harder these days to be focused. How do you teach people to tune out the noise and kind of put the blinkers on?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think there's 2 different sides of this, the academic and the emotional. I think with the academic, the entire reason it's called the framework is because it is a scaffolding of learning that I am only asking you to take a single step. I am never asking you to run. I am never asking you to look at the end of the whole year. I, you know, am on weekly mentoring calls with the students within my course. They're having a year of mentorship, and I'm never going to ask them to be at module 5 lesson, you know, 40 or whatever on day 3. And I always think of it as that, and I always picture this sort of thing, and I'm going to totally show my age here, but if anybody remembers Mr. Squiggle, and he's always off to the moon, and then Miss Jane or whatever her name was is always pulling his feet down. And I feel like in all of these calls, and my job is just to pull on those squiggle feet and make you come back to center. Back to center, like, oh, that's great. That's an excellent idea. Let's put it on your marketing calendar for quarter 4. Stop trying to do it all in the first 4 weeks of your business and look at the big picture. And that's really where it just keeps coming back to talking about the scaffolding and framework, and I will take you there. We will get there. Absolutely. This is on the cards, but you know, you're trying to do too much at once. You're going to overwhelm yourself and you're going to run. You are absolutely going to close this business down because you'll resent it, and you'll be terrified because you're doing everything in a mediocre level that you can't sustain because it's just all over the shop. Just while I think of it as well, in terms of avoiding things in the business and the common things that come up, the last one that I would say is people give up way too soon. And it comes back to what you said about this, you know, instant gratification world that we live in. And I get that because I've wanted to pull the life support system on my own business 1,000 times in the first year. Like that's why there's a high touch model within the course, because I know you're going to need someone to say, stick around. Your magic is just around the corner. Like if you're in the shower crying, this is your moment. There are no clients.
You're really close.
You're so like, honestly, I feel like a midwife sometimes. As someone who's had 3 babies, like I feel like all my students are in transition and I am just the voice that's sitting here going, the baby is nearly here. Like this is the moment. Like,
hold on.
If you're recognizing that you want to burn it down, we are we're in transition, and the next part is the bit where you have the business baby and everybody like it's no more pain and everything feels great.
Champagne everything and sushi for everyone.
That's right. And I know that's like silly. I guess I'm just using that analogy because I am a mother, but that's exactly how it is. It's that thing of like, you'll never know, like every single person has said, I've invested and I've backed myself and I've made a mistake. And I have done this and I've tried really hard, not good enough, because that consistency piece has to stretch, as you said before, much further than you anticipated. So you're like, I've done everything they've said and nothing's happened. And, I have Snapchats with a group of girlfriends, and they remind me of the times that I've snapped in absolute tears going, I'm not, I thought I could run a business and I really can't because there's no clients and I'm not doing it right and I'm terrible. Do any of you want me to like look at your lounge rooms for free so I can pretend I have clients? Like that sort of conversation. And then there's other conversations that they've been able to screenshot where I'm so busy that I'm really stressed and I've got the kids and I'm like, I have a 3-month wait list and I don't know what's going on. And and they're like, careful what you wish for, like being a bit smart, because they can come back and say, on one hand you were this and now you're this.
Running a business, it's not just in those early days that you're going to have the roller coaster. Like you can be 5, 10, 15 years into your business and it'll still be a roller coaster. The highs and the lows might not be as dramatic, but it's still a roller coaster kind of thing. So you've really got to strap yourself in if you're running a business.
Totally. That ebb and flow is not going anywhere, and the market can change, and even just design trends can change, and maybe you're not feeling that creative. We're not dancing monkeys. You can't be creative on command. And there are times in my business where I feel a disconnect and I start taking less clients because I don't want to be responsible for working with anyone in a way where I'm not passionate. And then there are times where I'm like on such a creative role that I'm like, anyone who, book in a Zoom with me at 9:00 at night if you want, because I'll do the work. And I can't, so you do manage that energy level as well. You can't be on all of the time. So, again, with the academic and the emotional, there are so many different sides of running a business, and they won't all align into this magical preach. It's not going to happen all the time. Something is always going to be getting lower attention or less of your focus at any given time, because you can't possibly do everything.
No, definitely not. So I would love to know, what are you looking forward to in your business in the next 12 months? You've had this kind of really exciting first 6 months to 2023. What's on the horizon for you and Oleander and Finch?
So many things. I can share some of them, and some of them are obviously just sitting on the calendar. Like all good entrepreneurs, I have many, many ideas and lots of things that I want to achieve. I've actually been really shocked at the amount, I shouldn't say shocked, but I was shocked at the amount of frameworkers that have joined in the first 6 months. I sort of had anticipated, maybe we'll do 20 in the first year and smash that on the first sort of release of that. And it's meant that I've been able to get so much great feedback, and I've been able to watch the journey. So I'm excited to not finish that, but for those January intakes, we're halfway through that year, and so I'm really intimately aware and across their business growth, and I'm really excited to sort of sit at Christmas and think, I helped with that. That was great. Like we're here now. Like I'm not going to be with them forever, but they do have that year. And being halfway through, I'm very excited to see how that plays out, because the next half is the half where, I'm already seeing so many things are happening for the people who are actually doing the work, and that's only going to sort of grow. So I'm excited for that. By the time this podcast goes live, I will have a community for interior designers who are not emerging designers. So I'm excited for that. That's called the Inner Circle, and it's basically like a virtual water cooler. It's somewhere where we can all get around and talk about the challenges and the successes, the wins, the struggles, the suppliers, everything that we need to talk about that's design centric, I guess. And I feel we talked about it or alluded to it a little bit earlier in our chat, but running a small business is so lonely. The landscape of this, like whether you're in a home studio like I am, or you're in a home office, or you're at a dining table, there is nobody in your home that knows what you're going through.
Yeah.
And yeah, cool, go to the networking events, but they're 4 times a year at max. Like people are not going to these daily, and we don't have an outlet. And I think, we don't have the growth that happens when I see people connecting and community and business, being able to bounce business ideas off people. It's not about coaching or mentorship. It's about running parallel with people who are doing the same thing as you.
Yeah.
So we're not, this particular thing is, not about join me and I'll tell you how I did this thing, or I'll show you how to do things. Absolutely not. It's such a way to connect and converse about the industry, and at a really, it's just it's less than $5 a week. It's sort of something that's not about emerging designers or 5-year in designers, or if you have to be scaling, or there's no sort of qualifier on that. It's about anyone who wants to come in and who needs to, be able, it's like using an application that's like a walkie-talkie, workshop it, or I'm just feeling this, or is this a red flag, or I've just sourced this particular thing and I'm worried that the website isn't credible. Have you heard of this? All those little things that we need to talk about. And I'm here for the gossip too, if you want to bring it. Like, it's about community and chats and things. So I'm excited for that. That's only sort of a week away, and I think that's really going to help for people that the framework is not right for. Because it's not for everyone.
It's
about
that's awesome.
You come and join us. Come and chat to us anytime.
Totally. So much on your plate. That's so exciting. So now you have kind of just talked on it about, but how can our community reach out to you and find out more about the framework and the inner circle and other things that you offer?
So you can follow along at Oleander _and Finch on Instagram. You can find me on my website, www.oleanderandfinch.com. And I'm launching my own podcast, which I'm really excited about. And that podcast is Designing Success from Study to Studio. So it is obviously encompassing all the things that we've talked about. And, I'm really excited to be launching that, because it's been something that's been on that for such a long time, and it's finally happening.
That's awesome. And we will link to all of those things on our show notes so everyone can find them very easily. Well, thank you so much, Rhiannon. I have really enjoyed our design dialogue, and I am so excited to see where you go. I think you're really meeting a need in our community of designers, which I think is so lovely, to be lifting other new designers up and supporting them. So thank you so much. And I hope you've enjoyed our design dialogue as well.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks, Beth.
Wow, I hope you enjoyed my dialogue with Rhiannon. So many great points that I think we can take away from it. One thing that I found really interesting was how Rhiannon talked about the designers that she sees that are really kicking goals are the ones that stay in their lane and are doing their thing and not worrying about what other people are doing or what they think. I know this advice can be easier said than done, but I think it is so crucial to having a successful business that works for you. The thing is, no one is going to run a business the way you do. Everyone has different motives, different reasons for running a business, and different things they want to achieve. If you just focus on that, focus on what your end goals are, then you will find you'll build a successful business that works for you. It might not work for everyone else, but that doesn't matter. So I hope you've enjoyed this design dialogue, and I look forward to seeing you again next week. Thank you for listening to this design dialogue. I hope you have found it full of inspiration and helpful information to take into your design studio. If you would like to unlock the power of effortless studio management and elevate your design business to new heights, please follow the links in our show notes to see how more time to design can help you build a better business. If you would like to get in touch, please reach out on email or Instagram. You can find the links to both in our show notes. I would also love it if you could rate and review this podcast. This helps others find it. Follow the link in our show notes. Have a great week, and I will see you for our next Design Dialogue.